this back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
Center back Jacob Glesnes
He's going for it. Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and man, is Subaru Park the place to be or what? I know I said that a couple episodes ago, but seriously, if you guys have not been to a game at Subaru Park this season, what are you guys waiting for? There is 3 home games left this season against Atlanta United this Wednesday. We have Orlando City in a couple weeks, and then we finish out the season against Toronto. And so if you guys want to get to a game in the regular season, you only have 3 chances. And it was fantastic. Before the game, after the game, walking around the concourse, just seeing all the happy faces of fans after they see the Philadelphia Union demolish yet again another team not only at home, but on the season. We've seen 3 complete beatdowns at home of DC United, Houston, and now Colorado. And then you have that DC game last week. And, man, there's a huge buzz in that stadium. Every time you walk in, people are getting to the game earlier than what I've seen, which, everybody comes in, I feel like, last minute in years prior because they're tailgating and everything. But no, people want to be in the stadium as early as possible to see the team warm up. The stadium's selling out, and so, you can't get in there late like you used to just because people wanting to get to their seats as soon as possible. The lines to get into the stadium are so long, and I know I've seen some people on social media complain saying that, yeah, it's taking the security team forever to get people inside the stadium, and hopefully they can get that situated. But, man, what a game it was last night. What a season it has been for the Philadelphia Union. And this is going to be an episode I feel like I'm going to give you guys a lot of stats. As you guys know, I love giving stats, and here's one for you guys real quick. OptaJack last night put out on Twitter and said that the teams that have the most 6-goal wins in MLS history is 1, Philadelphia Union with 4, 3, Sporting Kansas City, and 2, multiple teams have 2 6-goal wins in MLS. And this isn't in one season. This is throughout MLS history. And the Philadelphia Union have 4 of those. Like we said, DC United twice, Houston, Colorado. And Colorado are a team, if you guys listen to my match preview last episode, I wasn't really high on them compared to where they were last season. They have not been a great team, and a lot of that is because of William Yarbrough, the goalkeeper. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and talk about William again in this episode. But when you look at it, Colorado, they only have 1 road game all season. And so, and to see them come into Subaru Park, you could tell from the first minute that this game kicked off that they did not want to be here. And so that's why it was important for the Union to just stay on top of them to make sure that Colorado gets no momentum, let the Union get an early goal. And spoiler alert, I did indeed hit on my first key to the game. But get to a game because the people that say, yeah, I really want to get to a game, the season's going to be over before you realize it. And once playoffs come around, it is going to be extremely hard to get playoff tickets. And so you got to get out to Subaru Park. If you guys are debating, get out there. This is the place to be. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about in this episode. Have some news. Really only 3 points. Obviously talk about that game. Talk about my keys to the game that I went over last game. 3 stars to the game. Goal breakdowns. Blunder of the week, which, I had a couple choices for Blunder of the week, and this changed after the game. And so I'll let you guys know what my original blunder of the week was, and then I'll tell you guys the actual blunder of the week. But without further ado, let's just get straight into the news. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with Philadelphia Union news. I mentioned this name briefly last episode, and that is Philadelphia Union have announced the signing of midfielder Jeremy Rafanello to a homegrown contract. The 22-year-old youth international joins the Union on a 1.5 contract with club options for a third and fourth year. He spent 2 seasons in the USL Championship where he made 56 appearances, scoring 11 goals, including 2 braces, and he added 7 assists in that time. And now, Jeremy wasn't in the academy for a long time, like some players are with the Union. And shout out to Matt Ralph for just diving into Jeremy's soccer career. And this is why I love Matt, because I say it all the time when I'm talking to people in public when they ask me, oh, who to follow that covers the Union. And I always give credit to Matt because, yeah, this guy does cover the Union's first team, but he mainly pays attention to the academies, U2. And not only that, he pays attention to soccer in the Philadelphia region in general. And so whenever I get information about young players coming up through the system, I always go to Matt. And so Matt let people know that, yeah, Jeremy played high school soccer, which is kind of unheard of when you're a top prospect. I know Brendan Aronson, I believe, played 1 season of high school soccer, and then, his career turned out to be what it is so far. But to see Jeremy go from the academy to high school soccer to Bethlehem Steel, Reading United, playing overseas, to playing with Indy 11, then most recently with New York Red Bulls, and then he finally comes back to Philadelphia Union. He also played at Penn State. This is not your typical career that you see a player take. And yeah, like I said, with the Union's Academy in 2018, only stayed there for 1 season. And the Union decided, hey, look, we're going to give you a homegrown contract. Red Bulls 2 cut him because they wanted him to play for the first team. But because the Union held his rights, that meant that Red Bulls had to do a trade with Union. And I guess the asking price for Jeremy was too high for Red Bull to pay. And so they ultimately cut him. Union gave him a homegrown contract, which I feel like the Union did that to spite New York Red Bulls playing hardball. Like, yeah, you want this player? Then pay up. They didn't want to pay up. And like, all right, well, he was only in our academy for 1 year. We're going to give him a homegrown contract because he qualifies as a homegrown. And by the way, I don't know if you guys are subscribed to The Athletic, but apparently MLS is changing the rules for homegrowns, the territories, having a set price on players. And so the Union can't do what they did to New York Red Bulls, asking, I'm going to assume, a ridiculous price. And the Red Bulls said they didn't want it. And so Jeremy now sends a homegrown contract, and Jim Curtin seemed pretty optimistic that he can make a difference. Same with Ernst Tanner. And yeah, a player that scored 11 goals with New York Red Bulls, second team. It's not a bad idea to add players that can score goals. And I know it's the USL to the MLS is 90-day difference. But, just adding another option on that bench, adding depth, that's what it's all about. When somebody goes down because of suspension, they get hurt, it's always been the next man up mentality for this team. And Jim Curtin was also talking about midweek. And the good thing about Jeremy is he doesn't have to learn the system. He doesn't need to learn the style. He already knows it. And so he's a perfect fit for this team. Yes, he's going to get a ton of opportunities with Union 2, but when he's called upon for the first team, he'll be ready. And so that's something I wanted to bring up. But moving on, let's go ahead and talk about LAFC. And so this was reported a couple weeks ago that LAFC were going to be adding Cristian Tello, the former Barcelona player, most recently playing with Real Betis in La Liga. And now that it's official, because LAFC were able to transfer Brian Rodriguez to Liga MX's Club America, Cristian Tello will join on a free transfer for the rest of the season, and then he has options for the 2023-2024 season. And like I mentioned, he last played for Real Betis in La Liga. He will not occupy a designated player spot for LAFC. No surprise there, right? Cristian Tello joined Real Betis in La Liga in 2017, where he proceeded to go on and play 140 matches, making 51 starts and scoring 22 goals. He's 31 years old, and yeah, it might be exciting, I feel like, for LAFC fans to add another European player, a player that, like I said, came through the Barcelona Academy, played for Barcelona from 2011 to 2017, playing 59 times, scoring 11 goals. A player that's made one cap for the Spanish national team. But I don't think this is a signing that LAFC needed to make. They don't need more wingers. I think we saw that on Friday night against Austin. They looked terrible in the midfield. Defensively, they looked horrible. And Gareth Bale, Vela, and Arango, they did not gel well together in that game. And I know Taylor Twellman and John Champion were saying, is it possible that Carlos Vela and Gareth Bale can't play together? It's possible, right? I know I've seen LAFC fans say, oh, Gareth Bale isn't fit. He's still trying to get up to fitness. I don't know really how true that is or not. I mean, I guess it could be possible, right? Where he didn't play a ton with Real Madrid, but you feel like he should be fresh since he wasn't playing that much with Real Madrid. But regardless, yeah, they don't need another winger. They need defense. They need midfielders. They need midfielders that are going to protect that back line. That back line is extremely suspect. And so to go out and sign Cristian Tello, yeah, it might be fun bringing in a player that's known, but I don't think this is what they need. And hey, look, somehow this isn't a designated player spot or whatever. You guys can add all the attackers you want, because the Union have shown this season the way to their success, the way to be successful is by playing defense first, attacking second. And how have the Union been beating teams? And I know they've been beating teams that have been terrible. That's the teams that they've been blowing out. But remember, this Colorado team finished first in the Western Conference last season. Didn't lose a whole bunch in the offseason. I know they lost Mark Anthony Kaye. They lost Kalen Acosta. But they got a good young player in Priso. And I know Priso isn't the same as a Mark Anthony Kaye or Kalen Acosta. But they added Jossie Zardes, who's a good MLS player. Looked horrible last night, but I did not expect the Union to put 6 goals up against them. And what have the Union been able to do in all the games that they've blown these teams out in? Keep a clean sheet. And Jim Curtin did talk about that too last night, where he said, yeah, it's super impressive that this team, not only can they blow teams out, but they're keeping clean sheets as well in the process of doing that. And it does take a lot of commitment to stay focused defensively while you're scoring a ton of goals, because you can definitely lose your focus, lose your shape, because once the goals start raining in, everybody wants to be a part of that. And the Union look, we want to get that record from Real Salt Lake where they gave up 27 goals in a 34-game season. We're at 20 goals, 6 games left. It is possible. We know we still got to keep clean sheets, and we're blowing out, yet again, another team. But we got to stay focused. And that's exactly what they did against Colorado. It's what they did against DC twice. It's what they did against Houston. All 4 of those games, they blew out opponents. And so, again, just going back to LAFC, why you don't add another defensive midfielder? I know they added one from Orlando City, but why you don't bring another one in? It's crazy to me. And so I know everybody's all excited about the attack that LAFC brings, but how long is beating teams 5-4? And I know it hasn't happened because I always go back to Liverpool a few seasons ago where they were terrible defensively, but they had that attack of Sturridge, Sterling, I believe Suarez was on the team, and they were winning games with Brendan Rodgers like 5-4. And it's like, this isn't a recipe for success. You can't keep having high score games because you're not going to keep blowing teams out all the time with a lot of goals. It's not going to happen. And so I feel like LAFC, and I know I'm rambling, I feel like LAFC is not going to be able to do that come playoff time. The whole mentality, the whole way that teams approach the playoffs completely changes, especially when the team is going on the road. They become super defensive. And so if LAFC thinks when playoff times come that they're just going to be able to put up 3-4 goals with all these attackers, I don't think it's going to happen because of how suspect that defense and midfield is. And speaking of in defense for LAFC, they also announced that they loaned out Mamadou Fall to Villareal of La Liga. The loan, which began immediately, will run through June of 2023. LAFC retains the rights to recall the player if he's not getting much game time with Villareal. The Senegal native appeared in a total of 35 regular season matches for LAFC, 29 starts over 2 seasons, scoring 5 goals. This season, Fall made 16 regular season appearances, 13 starts, and scored his lone goal in stoppage time to equalize the match versus Portland on March 6th. And this is one of their promising defenders, one of their best, if not their best defender this season. And I remember during the summer, during June, people were like, yeah, this guy's going to go. He's going to go on a permanent. He's young. He's playing very, very well. Teams in Europe are going to want him. And so LAFC were not able to permanently transfer him. And they sent him out on loan. And I'm sure when you bring in Chiellini, that helps ease the transition a little bit. But let's be honest. Chiellini has not played a full 90 in MLS. Chiellini has complained about the heat, how it's different than what he's played in before. And so, I don't know. I think I would much rather have Mamadou Fall than Chiellini, who's a great defender, but to expect him to be peak Chiellini by the time playoff starts, I don't know. I feel like that's a tough ask when he's still getting used to MLS. So I don't know. People can hype up LAFC all they want. The Supporters Shield race is truly on. I know LAFC have a 6-point difference over the Union, and they've also played one less game, but it's not. It's really not over yet for the Union to win the Supporters Shield. When you look at their remaining schedule compared to LAFC's, they still got to play Nashville. They got to play Portland again in Portland. They got to play Houston twice, which you expect probably a win. Got to go to Minnesota. So LAFC don't have the easiest of schedules, and you can definitely see them drop a couple more points with 7 remaining games on their schedule. But I feel like I talked your guys' ears off a lot for the news. So let's just go straight into this Philadelphia Union versus Colorado Rapids game. As we all know, the game ended 6-0 to the Union. And look, I said it in the intro. I'll say it again. The Union could not have started the first half any better. They needed a fresh start, like I said. You got to set the tempo. And as soon as Daniel Gazdag got that early goal, you could tell that the heads dropped for Colorado. They were disinterested. They seemed very disorganized, playing in a back three. The Union expected them to play a back four. And the Union were getting in behind the center backs early and often. It was a complete mess. And Jim Curtin, and I'll play that clip right here. Jim Curtin talked about how even that surprised the team. Not only were we as fans, as media members, caught off guard by Colorado playing Keegan Rosenberry as one of the three center backs playing in a back three, Jim Curtin and his team were also caught off guard by that.
When the initial lineup sheet came in, we were caught off guard, no question about it. We had prepared for them to play in a back four, and Estevez, who's had a really good year on that left side, was really dangerous. So that was kind of our whole game plan. And then I guess I'm being just pretty open right now and say we completely missed the preparation for exactly what they were going to play. So sometimes the plan changes, and we talked to them literally in the pregame talk before we stepped out on the field. Regardless of whether they play in a back three, a back five, whether they rested guys, rotated guys, we have to play our way with our principles. They don't change. Let's play the same exact way, regardless of the back four, back three, regardless of the personnel on the field. So our guys took that to heart. I think they executed and overall started the game the right way.
Yeah, and Jim's right. The Union absolutely started the game the right way. And why Colorado didn't start Diego Rubio, he didn't even play this game. Why they went with a back three, I'm so confused. I fully expected them to come out on a 4-2-3-1, and that's not what happened at all. And not only, was the defense disorganized, their one striker that they played up top, in Jossie, he was coming so deep to get on the ball. And when you're doing that, and now the Union just have to focus on the two wing backs who weren't really troubling at all on the night. The only one that caused problems maybe once in this game was Barrios. But when Jossie's having to come so deep to collect the ball, that's a win for the Union. And not only, like we said, were they playing bad defense, but then you take their lone striker out of the game, they literally have nothing. I know the DC United game at home, in a way, were just terrible displays by United. I know the Houston game was bad too, but I don't know. I feel like Colorado might have been the worst out of those teams that we've seen. Let's be honest. The game last week in DC was because Romero was just terrible in the net. They were playing players out of position, and the attack, at least they had an attack against the Union. But Colorado, they literally had nothing. It was just so disorganized. And like I said, once the Union got that early goal, you could tell that they did not want to be there. And sure enough, the goal just kept pouring in. You saw Bizo getting the best of their left back just all first half with his pace. It was just caught me so off guard. And I know I'm sounding like I don't have words to say because I really don't. I was not expecting that from Colorado last night. Like I said, I know they only had one win on the road this season. And that one win on the road was against Red Bulls when Colorado won that game 5-4. And they showed so much more heart in that game than they did against the Union last night. And I don't know. It's just so crazy to me. I can't wrap my head around why Colorado was so bad last night, why they decided to go in a back three instead of a back four. And you guys have heard me talk about this in the past, in the podcast. The Union have struggled at times this season against teams that have played two holding midfielders. And that's what I expected Colorado to do. And they didn't do that. So I don't know what Robin Frazier was thinking last night. Like you guys heard, Jim Curtin was completely caught off guard by Colorado's lineup. And you look at Andre Blake, he came up big with a save against Warner in the 15th minute, I believe it was, which, I thought Warner fouled Andre Blake, but credit to Andre for just sticking with the play. He didn't complain straight away that, hey, look, I'm fouled. Where's the ref blowing his whistle? He stuck with the play, made a big save. Now, if Warner would have scored that goal, would they have went to VAR? You would hope so. But regardless, Andre Blake didn't give up to the play. And that's just a huge credit for the concentration of Andre Blake for sticking with the play. And how many times do we just credit players on this team for never giving up, always sticking with the play? Happens multiple times a game. Like I was talking about, Barrios was the only threatening player in the attack for Colorado, but even he wasn't doing anything. I mean, you could tell he was getting frustrated at times. He kept switching sides to attack. He would attack Bizo. Bizo would shut him down. He would attack Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner did a good job shutting him down. I mean, there was one moment in the first half that sticks out to me where Colorado hits on their counterattack. Barrios beats the Union with his pace, but then nothing really came of that situation, that moment. I know Barrios and Jose Martinez had a coming together in the second half, early second half of this game, I think. Nothing came of that, but yeah, I mean, a player that I said to my buddy Skyler, I said, no, this is a play we haven't seen since 2019 live in Subaru Park, and you forget how fast he is. You had, like, his pace watching him on TV, it doesn't do it justice. But seeing him in person, like, that guy is rapid, and he only had one moment, and nothing came of it. And then the second half, they moved Barrios as the lone striker, so it's like you're getting shut down by the left and the right back for the Philadelphia Union. And now we're going to try you in the center of the attack to go against Glesnes and Elliott, and then he gets shut out by both of those. I mean, it was not it was not a good display at all from the attack of Colorado. When you look too, they only had 6 shots on the night, only 2 on target. It just wasn't a good display at all from Colorado. And I know I told you guys I have a lot of stats to go over. I definitely do want to bring up some of these stats. You look at William Yarbrough. We'll talk about him a little bit later in reviewing my keys to the game. But he did have 2 saves on Daniel Gazdag that I thought were really, really impressive. Julian Carranza had 3 really big misses in this game. I know he did get a goal due to the penalty, but I don't know. I mean, he has 13 goals on the season, so I'm sure you guys aren't concerned, but he had 7 total shots in this game, and he had 3 chances to score, and he misses them all. Misses all 3 of those. They weren't saved. They were just bad misses, and so we've seen that the last couple of weeks where Julian's been in great positions to score, and then he misses. He misses the easy chances, and then he comes out against DC United where he scores a beautiful goal for his second goal. The curling shot with his left foot. It's like, how do you miss the easy shots and then you score a goal like you did against DC for your second? And so, I don't know. My question, I guess, to you guys is that a concern to you guys that Julian gets a ton of chances, but again, we saw 3 misses last night, should have had more than 1 goal last night. The only goal he got was from a penalty kick, didn't score from open play, so I don't know. Is that a concern for you guys? Is it not a concern? A little bit of a concern for me was also when the Union messed up a 5-on-2 in the 63rd minute. Bizo, I believe it was, played the ball way too late to Daniel Gazdag, is caught off sides. But I guess it doesn't matter because the Union were already up 3-0 at that point. But yeah, You should be scoring a 5-on-2 when there's literally only two defenders back for Colorado. You have so many options to pass the ball. You should never not score a 5-on-2. The play was called for offsides just because Bizo waited way too late to pass the ball to Gazdag. I mean, you've got to at least get a shot on target when you're on a 5-on-2. And, you know, other than that, there's nothing that really stands out to me that, oh, the Union should have done better. The Union took care of business. They did exactly what they needed to do. And my buddy Kyle mentioned to me during the game or after the game, I don't know, I forget. And he was like, do you think this is what Ernst Tanner and Jim Curtin envisioned for this team? And I think it absolutely is, where and Jim Curtin's always preached defense, defense, defense. Only 20 goals conceded this season. And the Union could break Real Salt Lake's record of 27 goals given up in a 34-game season. But we're starting to see just a whole bunch of goals. We're seeing the chemistry between Mikael Uhre, Daniel Gazdag, Julian Carranza. I know I talk about it every single episode, but this is exactly what Ernst and Jim thought they were building with this team. And Jim Curtin gave credit to every single person on his coaching staff, all the trainers, all the sports department. I mean, it's crazy. And a lot of you guys listening to this podcast have been around this team since day one. And I'm sure you guys are shocked too, seeing this team play as good as they're playing this season. This is the best Philadelphia Union team there's ever been. It's not even close in my opinion. When you look at that front three, when you look at the defense, and I'm sure you guys that have been around since day one could have never imagined this is what you would have from a Philadelphia Union team when they keep a ton of clean sheets, where they're strong defensively, where they've got the best attacking trio in MLS, when they're scoring a ton of goals. You guys never would have envisioned this. And full credit goes to Ernst Tanner for getting the right pieces for Jim Curtin. And credit goes to Jim Curtin and his coaching staff for getting the most out of these players, for these players buying into the system. And you do think once the season ends, if the Union don't come away with a trophy, that 100% it's going to be a failure of a season, even though we're seeing just this team set so many records. But this team is so fun to watch, and especially at home. Like I said in the intro, if you guys haven't been to a game this season at Subaru Park, what are you guys doing? Get there. 27 goals scored in the last 6 home matches. The Union this season at home have scored a total of 36 goals, 7 goals against. 36 goals total at home, where in the last 6 games, they've scored 27. That is unbelievable. The Union, Jim Curtin also mentioned in his press conference, he said that I'm kind of hoping that they can save some of these goals they're scoring for the playoffs. And I kind of feel the same way too. I know that everybody's joking and everything, but you may worry a little bit that the Union, how many more goals do they have left in them? Like, when it matters most come playoff time, you hope the Union don't struggle to score goals. But the last 6 games, they've not struggled at all to score goals at home. One thing that I find interesting too is that the Union have had 11 different goal scorers on the season. And you look, in the last 6 home matches, they've had 9 different goal scorers. And just the last 5 games total, they've had 7 different goal scorers. And I asked Jim Curtin, I said, look, you're getting a ton of contributions from a whole bunch of players. It's not from just your front three of Gazdag, Uhre, and Carranza. But you had Matt Real, you had Jack Elliott, Corey Burke adding goals, Jack McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say about contributions from the whole team.
A lot of goals being scored. Corey Burke's on a tear right now, putting the ball in the back of the net in limited minutes, which is really, really good to see. I'm really proud for him. Happiest for Matt Real, because that's a kid that is again, an example of this team. Whether you're number 1 on the roster or you're 25 or whatever it might be, all of our guys, some of them that didn't even play tonight, are contributing in a big way. And Matt Real has worked his ass off every day in training and is a starting left back for 15 to 20 other teams in this league, right? And you guys have seen the left backs in this league, right? He's a starter, but he's kept his mouth shut. He's put his head down. He's worked his ass off, and I believe it's not a coincidence that he scores tonight. That is well deserved for Matt. So I think that speaks to this team, the guys that maybe you guys don't see on Saturdays and Sundays all the time are in practice every day, pushing the starters really, really hard. And if they take their foot off the gas a little bit, we're comfortable to go to them, as you guys have seen. So it's really a good group right now, but I think that's a good example of the depth, the hunger of everybody to be part of it, to feel part of it. And right now we have a good thing going.
And that goal that Matt Real scored, we'll talk about it when we break down the goal, but that was a striker's finish. Great shot from outside the box from Matt Real. Great cutback from Kai Wagner. But you just love to see everybody chipping in on this team. Players that aren't starters still contributing to the goal scoring list. And yeah, maybe part of that is because the Union have already built such big leads, but it should make you guys confident. And, okay, look, if Mikhail Uhre doesn't get a goal, didn't get a goal last night, got an assist, but Corey Burke has continued his hot form, like Jim Curtin mentioned, added another goal last night. It should make you guys confident. All right, well, if we're chasing a goal, if we're struggling to add to this lead, we have players on the bench that can score goals. And I know the Union, like I just said, they've been dominating teams the last couple of weeks, and so the players that are just getting their first goal of the season, maybe their second goal of the season, they're doing it while the Union are up 4-0 already. And so maybe it doesn't matter that much to you, but I do think that Corey Burke, that Matt Real, players that aren't starters, but when they're called upon, they deserve all the credit in the world for keeping their mouth shut, like Jim said, and just going about doing the job. And Matt Real, you guys heard Jim Curtin, so excited for that guy to score his first goal of this season. When you look at it too, Matt Real has only played a couple minutes of this season. He's not played a lot. And the reason I said a couple minutes is because I thought I had it pulled up on my stats. I do not have the minutes, so stalling for time. But Matt Real's been playing primarily for Union 2, and I know he's added a couple goals with you too. And to see him, all right, well, come in for the closing minutes of this game against Colorado and get a chance. And his one chance to score, he goes and does that. And of course, MLS's website's down, so I can't even pull up the stats, how many minutes Matt Real's played this season. Of course that would happen. And so I know Matt Real's definitely not played more than 30 minutes this season at MLS. I knew that's a fact. But to see him come out and score a striker's goal, all the credit goes towards him. Just what a team this is. And you guys should all just be so happy. And I feel like you guys all are so happy. And again, I'll keep repeating myself. If you guys are listening to this podcast, haven't been out to a game this season at Subaru Park, get out there before it's too late. But quickly, let's go over our keys to the game. Number one, I said fast start / set the tempo for this game. And that's exactly what the Union did in this game. Like I mentioned, the Union got that early goal. Colorado, they'd given up 40 goals coming into this game, with 23 of those goals conceded in the first half, with 5 of the 23 given up in the first 10 minutes. And the Union have now seen 7 goals in the first 10 minutes in MLS this season, which is now the most in MLS. And the Union, in the first 15 minutes of the game, they've scored 8 goals, and that is tied for the second most in MLS. And so the Union, I've talked about it, I know, in the past, that they've done a phenomenal job this season in the first 10 minutes of the game. And when you look in the first half for the Union, they've been so good. 29 goals scored, 5 goals conceded, all in the first half this season for the Union. The Union have scored the first goal in 11 out of 14 games at home this season. I mean, it's so enjoyable going to games at Subaru Park. And Jim said too that, fans are probably starting to expect to see 5+ goals at home now because they've done it 3 times this season. But yeah, it's the place to be, and the Union are so good in the first 10 minutes of the game, so good at Subaru Park. Number 2, I said, Tess William Yarbrough. Like I said, coming into this game, he had a 68 save percentage, 1.45 goals against. Again, that's a pass. Yarbrough only saved 57% of the shots last night, way below his 68% average. He allowed 6 goals on the night. He was horrible. Gave up the 5th goal on the night with a bad pass. His distribution was terrible on the night for Colorado. He had 8 saves, but still, when you're only saving 57% of the shots, that's a terrible goalkeeping performance. And then I said contain Diego Rubio, and that is not available because for whatever reason, Diego Rubio didn't start, nor did he play at all. Don't know what's up with that, but 2 out of 3 passes. And I guess technically 2 out of 2 passes since my third one never even happened. But quickly, again, let's go ahead into Stars on the Night. Just going to go over this quickly. Number 1 for me is obviously Daniel Gazdag. Gets the hat trick. Number 2 on my list would probably be Jack Elliott. Played phenomenal in the back, just with his partnership with Jacob Glesnes. These guys are for sure the best center backs in MLS, just with their communications with not only each other, but with the fullbacks to each of their sides. The chemistry they have is unbelievable. And yes, I know we've talked about Jacob Glesnes being questionable potentially in the last few matches, but he also had a good match. But when you have Jack Elliott play as good as he played last night, with winning duels, with recoveries, with interceptions, he's going to make those games easier for everybody around him. And then number 2 on the night, I would say probably Bizo again, just for him having his way against the left back of Colorado, left wing back, whatever you want to call him. Bizo was fantastic in the attack on the night. 41 out of 46 completed passes, 1 a penalty, 1 out of 2 on dribbles, 65 touches, 4 passes into the final third, 2 blocks, 1 clearance, 1 headed clearance, 1 interception, 8 ball recoveries, 4 out of 6 ground duels, 1, 2 out of 2 aerials, 1. So Bizo, again, was fantastic. And yeah, there's no denying that Bizo has won the right back spot over Nate Harriel, which, when Bizo does need a break, you're confident that Nate can get the job done defensively. Offensively, yeah, Nate still has to grow, but we've got 2 really good right backs, and, whichever one of them play, you guys feel confident that they're going to get the job done. And so let's go ahead and talk about the goal breakdown, starting out with the first goal, which came from Daniel Gazdag. And so we saw a lot of this on the night. The Union just building out the play from the back. Kai Wagner is going to go ahead, get the ball from Jack Elliott, pick his head up. Colorado too slow to close down Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner is going to play a long ball up to Mikael Uhre. And the left-sided center back for Colorado, I don't know why he gave Mikael so much space. I know there was potential for Mikael to be offsides here. Mikael does a good job to chest this ball down to Daniel Gazdag. Daniel Gazdag makes a good run off of Danny Wilson. And then just a great finish to the right side of the goal. Nothing William Yarbrough could have done there, but just what a terrific ball from Kai Wagner. Great chest down from Mikael Uhre. And Daniel Gazdag with a terrific finish. The second goal also courtesy of Daniel Gazdag's penalty. And so how we got here was, again, with the Union just building out of the back. You had Ale Bedoya coming to the ball. You had the ball played into Mikel Uhre, who had 3 players on him. 2 of the players Mikel dribbles by, finds himself into space, slots the ball out wide to Ale Bedoya. Ale is then going to cut the ball back to Daniel Gazdag, who, by the way, when this play started, Gazdag was making a late run into the box, and then he cuts. He sees, all right, Ale's in a little bit of trouble. Let me go and cut for the ball. And nobody picks up the run from Daniel Gazdag. So Daniel Gazdag is going to go run to the ball. As soon as Daniel Gazdag takes a touch, absolutely nobody goes to Daniel Gazdag. Gazdag has a 1-2 with Mikel Uhre. And then from there, Gazdag has some nice dribbling, gets fouled in the box, penalty for the Union. Gazdag converts. And then for the third goal, Julian Carranza, the build-up for this play again. The Union, the story of the night, I feel like, should be, yes, the Union scored 6 goals, but the way they got their 6 goals, they didn't rush anything. They built out the attack, which we've seen the Union play a ton of long balls, which, yes, Kai Wagner played a long ball, Jack Elliott played a long ball to get an attack going, but it wasn't, all right, as soon as we get the ball, long ball. No, they built out the attack in the back, and that's exactly what they did for the third goal, which Julian Carranza scored the penalty. And so Kai Wagner is going to go ahead and get the ball, pass the ball back to Daniel Gazdag. Daniel Gazdag comes all the way back in his own half to get on the ball. Gazdag is going to go ahead, pass the ball to Martinez. Martinez to Jack Elliott. Jack Elliott's just going to go ahead, dribble around, has so much space. Nobody is pressuring the ball for Colorado. And so because of that, Jack Elliott's able to get into an area where he can hit a long ball over the top, hits the long ball perfectly out wide to Bizo. Bizo gets by his guy, falls into the box, penalty given to the Union. I actually don't think this is a penalty for the Union. I think the refs got this wrong, should have went to VAR. I think Bizo was going down already. I think he slipped, and the referee gives the penalty. Terrible call by Alan Chapman, but I mean, we'll take it, right? The fourth goal on the night, best goal of all of them, from Daniel Gazdag to complete the hat trick. Again, Union playing out of the back. Glesnes plays the ball to Corey Burke, who, like we talked about in the intro, just so disorganized from Colorado. They have a line of 4 in the midfield, and then they have a back 3. And Corey Burke's at the halfway line, collects this ball. There are 4 players in the midfield. Nobody's on Corey Burke. So Corey Burke's able to take a touch and then just go at the defense. And right now, as soon as Corey Burke gets into the attacking half, it's a 4-3 for the Union. Corey Burke has options, and like I mentioned, the Union messed up a 5-2. But this 4-3, the Union do a good job capitalizing on it. Daniel Gazdag's isolated between the 2 center backs. He's going to go ahead and peel off the center back, and Corey Burke's going to make a terrific pass. And Daniel Gazdag just with a terrific chip goal to get a hat trick, but it was a great pass. Couldn't have timed that any better from Corey Burke. And look, we've talked about Corey Burke a lot on this podcast, giving a lot of stick, but he's been playing so good the last couple of weeks with his goals and with his assist. And when he's playing good, you've got to give him the respect that he deserves. You know, it's easy to get on somebody for playing bad, but when somebody's playing good, I feel like people are hesitant to give those players their dues. And Corey Burke is well deserving of those with a great pass here to Daniel Gazdag. The 5th goal came courtesy of Corey Burke. And like I mentioned, this was an error from William Yarbrough. Just throws the ball out to one of his players. And as soon as he throws the ball out, his guys pressured by two Union players. The Union are 4-0 up here in the 87th minute, and they start pressing to win the ball back with Jack McGlynn and Paxton Aronson. And so the Union win the ball back with Paxton Aronson. Jack McGlynn's going to go ahead and pick his head up, takes a shot from distance. William Yarbrough spills the ball, and Corey Burke's the first to react to the ball. And this is just Colorado giving up, because as soon as Jack McGlynn takes a shot here, nobody for Colorado is reacting. They're all just walking back, watch William Yarbrough drop this ball. And as soon as he spills the ball, they've got their head down. I believe that's Keegan Rosenberry whose head's down as soon as he sees William Yarbrough drop the ball. Just completely gave up. And Corey Burke worked hard, gets the goal. Well done to Corey Burke for that goal. And then you go ahead and look. The last goal of the game also came courtesy of Corey Burke working his tail off. And so all three of the last goals of this game came courtesy of Corey Burke. Corey Burke wins a tackle back in his own half, gets the ball, picks his head up, dribbles past the guy, and sees that, all right, well, we have numbers forward. There's two guys back on defense for Colorado. We have a 4-on-4 going. Kai Wagner's ahead of the two midfielders, and so I'm going to go ahead and slot a perfect ball into Kai Wagner. Kai Wagner takes a great first touch, and Kai Wagner's just going to keep going towards goal. As soon as Kai Wagner gets inside the 18-yard box, he cuts it back to Matt Real because Kai Wagner draws a double team. Nobody picks up Matt Real. Not the greatest pass back to Matt Real. Matt takes a good first touch, but what's even better is his second touch to set him up for this shot. And like I mentioned earlier, a striker strike from Matt Real. Fantastic finish. And yeah, the Union don't make these goal breakdowns easy with the amount of goals that they score. So yeah, I did not expect when I started to do these goal breakdowns this season that the Union would be scoring 6+ goals multiple times this season. But before we end this podcast, let's go ahead and talk about Blunder of the Week. And so I was going to give Blunder of the Week to Alejandro Pozuelo of Inter Miami for his straight red card on New York Red Bulls. Had a high boot straight into the chest of New York Red Bulls. And maybe that should get Blunder of the Week still. But I think ultimately, Blunder of the Week's got to go to the VAR and the officiating crew in the Cincinnati Columbus Crew game, Hell is Real derby. And so this comes because Derek Ethion is offsides for Columbus. The goal stands. They don't even go to VAR in the stadium. Atlanta says, yeah, it's a good goal. And Pat Noonan had a lot to say.
They're interested because it's clear. That's why they're interested, is because this has happened to a point now where it's an embarrassment in our league. It's not just us. I will continue to say that. But it is a huge problem that guys that put in that much continue to get punished by just really, really poor officiating across the board. And the reasons you get for, the offside goal, the checkpoint's different than what they see in Atlanta. How can the checkpoint be different? How do you not have that view? Or how can you not just look at it and say, I should check this? This is something that doesn't look right. But again, that's the norm.
And you could tell Pat Noonan is furious. And he's right. I mean, it isn't just Cincinnati that calls have been blown against. The Union have got, 4 or 5 apologies from pro referees this season, from MLS this season. It's not good for the game. You bring in VAR to help avoid these mistakes. And something that was so clear and obvious of an offsides call, you get completely wrong. You don't go to VAR in the stadium because Atlanta says the goal is good. How can you allow that to be the case? How can you, as a referee, say, yeah, I'm not going to go ahead and look at this. I'm going to just listen to whatever you guys say. You've got to be having a look at that. And referees make mistakes. They're not perfect. But that's the whole reason why we have VAR in the game, is to go ahead and limit these mistakes. Referees are human. We all make mistakes. But the whole point of VAR was so that those mistakes can be taken out of the game. And when you have that technology available to you, how don't you go to it from inside the stadium? You just allow the VAR headquarters in Atlanta to look at it and say, all right, well, we don't have the angle. And so the goal is going to stand. How do you say that? How do you have a VAR headquarters set up in Atlanta to make it easier for the referees? And you say, we don't have the angle, and so we're going to give the goal, when the goal is clearly wrong. And this doesn't happen just against Cincinnati, like Pat says. It happens all around the league. And God forbid something like this happens in the playoffs, where if it happened to the Union, you guys would be ticked off. You guys would not let pro referees, MLS, hear the end of it. And so as the season comes to an end, you hope pro referees can get better. And I know that's asking for a lot, because they've been terrible for years. But seriously, when you have technology like VAR, how do you get a simple call like this incorrect? And I couldn't have said it any better than what Pat Noonan said. And so pro referees, once again, taking the list, and getting Blunder of the Week, because they are terrible. And we all get on the refereeing, the VAR calls in England. But the last couple weeks, refereeing in MLS has been as bad, if not worse, than the refereeing in the Premier League, which I thought we would never see the day, because the refereeing the last couple years in the Premier League, where they're taking centimeters, they're looking at centimeters for offsides and saying you're offsides because your pinky's offsides. That is ridiculous. But now here's pro referee saying, well, the Premier League's doing this. We're going to raise a glass to you and say, we're going to move our headquarters for VAR down to Atlanta, where they can look at all angles and everything, and VAR in Atlanta say, we don't have the angle. Oh my God. But there you have it, Blunder of the Week. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website, thefreekick.net. And yeah, just watching that replay, I'm upset for Cincinnati. And pro referees make me so mad. But you guys are listening to this podcast on Sunday, because I recorded this podcast on Sunday, released the podcast on Sunday, which also means tonight at 8 p.m. I am live on Twitter Spaces for episode 200 of the podcast, which is so crazy to believe. So I hope a whole bunch of you guys join tonight. We can talk about this Colorado game. We can talk about Atlanta. We can talk about pro referees, how they screw that call up in Cincinnati. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we can talk about it tonight on the podcast. And so don't forget, live tonight, 8 p.m. on Twitter Spaces. I'll see you guys there. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.